Good morning. Today I want to talk to you about the topic of anticipatory grief. One of the things that I've heard from people over and over again is that they have this nagging feeling that they just can't seem to name or shake. When I mention that it's probably grief, I usually get a strange look followed by, "No, that's not what I mean." When we think of grief, most people think of it in terms of the loss of a person. However, most people experience some form of grief when any tangible item of importance is lost. This is called actualized grief, and there's a lot of losses produced by this pandemic that produce grief. They may include some of the following: the loss of a person or job, the loss of a collective sense of normalcy, the loss of connection with important people and groups, or even just the simple loss of a normal routine. But there is another type of grief that's a little more difficult to define, and because it's ambiguous in nature, it's sometimes harder to manage. This grief is anticipatory. It's still this lingering, fearful sense that more loss is coming, but you don't know exactly what it is yet. Because the loss is largely unnamed and unnameable, it can be more difficult to come to terms with. So, what are some signs that you may be experiencing anticipatory grief? 1. You're on edge and it's not exactly clear why. Maybe it's that feeling of dread that something bad is just around the corner, uh, or a heightened sense of vigilance where and every situation is assessed as being a threat. Finally, you may feel a persistent anxiety, which results in either one, freezing up when decisions are needed to be made, or simply avoiding decisions altogether through procrastination. Two, you respond with anger to things that you can't control. You find that you're easily and persistently frustrated. Small obstacles suddenly become unbearable. The store being out of your favorite cup of coffee might have not been a big deal before, but now you're furious with the store for not having enough in stock. The small obstacles serve as a subtle reminder that things are not the same and trigger a sense of loss even without us recognizing it. You're resigned to the worst case scenario. One way people try to cope with anticipatory grief is to imagine the worst case scenario in an attempt to mentally prepare for the event. We trick ourselves into thinking that if we can imagine the worst, then it won't shock us when it really happens. However, this is a trap our mind plays. It doesn't keep us safe, but it keeps us emotionally activated and in a state of chronic stress, which can show negative effects in our immune system. Preparedness is good, but if you find yourself fixed on the most apocalyptic possibility, you may be doing more harm than good. You find yourself withdrawing or avoiding others. When we're feeling overwhelmed, it seems to make sense to withdraw from others. It can even feel like we're protecting ourselves from other people's stress and anxiety. However, this can backfire and actually lead to a greater sense of isolation and increase the feeling of depression and anxiety. Instead, we need to set good boundaries and stay connected. You feel exhausted all the time. A lot of what we experience with anticipatory grief is our body's response to trauma and a constant state of fight or flight. Our bodies react by flooding us with hormones just in case we need to react quickly. The side effect of this constant amped up state is that when we do slow down, we feel worn out and exhausted. So if you're experiencing anticipatory grief, here are some things you can do to help navigate these feelings. 1. Acknowledge your feelings. There's no need to be critical or ashamed of your feelings. Each person will experience grief differently, and none of the feelings you're having is unreasonable during such a difficult time. So give yourself some grace. Remember the basics. It's important to eat healthy meals, stay hydrated, and get as much rest as possible. It's also important to avoid overexposure to news and intentionally schedule times to be active. Connect with others even if you don't want to. It can be tempted to shut people out when you feel overwhelmed. Resist the urge. Human connection is a critical part to your well-being at this time. Make time for R&R. That's rest and relaxation. I know that it may sound crazy to say relax during a global pandemic. However, calming the body and the brain is a key to good mental and physical health at this time. Get creative. Studies have shown that finding creative outlets can be very helpful at this time because of their ability to aid the processing of what is happening to us emotionally. Some suggestions include journaling, dancing, singing, playing a musical instrument, or any form of art. Talk to someone. Clergy as well as trained therapists can be a vital resource at this time. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Finally, remember you're not alone. Many of us are experiencing grief around this time of rapid change and uncertainty. The feelings you're having during this time are completely understandable. Be gracious with yourself, and if you need support, don't hesitate to reach out to someone. The Spiritual Care Department is here to support you during this time. You can contact our department at extension 77142 or via text at 281 844 5317. Thank you, and may God bless you.